In a world obsessed with noise, dominance, and constant assertion, the loudest voice often commands the most attention. Social media, politics, even everyday interactions seem to reward those who can shout the longest, argue the hardest, or dominate the room. We are taught that if you want respect, you have to take up space, speak louder, stand taller, and never let a challenge go unanswered. But the Stoics saw things differently, and more clearly. They recognized that true respect is not demanded through decibels or dramatics. It's commanded in silence, earned through character, and revealed in quiet consistency. Modern culture celebrates the extrovert ideal, loud personalities, charismatic performers, outspoken figures who bend a room to their will. But if you study those who have lasted in influence, those who exude unshakable respect, it is not volume that defines them. It's stillness, it's presence, it's restraint. Marcus Aurelius, arguably one of the most powerful men in history, didn't boast or broadcast. He journaled privately. He led with calm. He acted with integrity and observed more than he spoke. He proved that a Stoic does not seek attention. He becomes so grounded that attention seeks him. Respect, in the Stoic sense, is not a reaction you trigger in others through performance. It's a natural byproduct of self-command. Epictetus made this clear when he said, "Be silent for the most part, or speak only what is necessary, and in few words." In other words, your silence is not absence. It's evidence that you do not feel the need to constantly validate yourself to others. The less you try to be respected, the more you reflect someone who already respects themselves, and that's where the real gravity is born. Think about the people you instinctively respect in your own life. Chances are, it's not the ones who always had a clever answer, who always raised their voice, or who dominated every room. It's the one who listened carefully before responding, the one who did not waver under pressure, the one who had a quiet but certain presence about them, a presence that didn't beg for your approval, because it didn't need it. This is the Stoic archetype in action. The man or woman who doesn't speak much, but when they do, everyone listens. Why is that? Because silence implies control. It means you're not ruled by emotional urgency. You're not explaining to be light. You're not reacting to be relevant. You are standing in the fortress of your own mind, anchored, focused, and self-sufficient. This is why Stoicism is not about being passive. It's about being internally active. The still exterior hides a deeply trained discipline. The person who seems quiet on the outside may, in fact, be holding an entire army of mental order within. There's a common misconception that silence is weak, that if you don't defend yourself, you'll be walked over, that if you don't speak up, people will think you have nothing to offer. But Stoicism reverses that narrative. It teaches that the strongest person in the room is not the one who needs to perform, but the one who doesn't, the one who can withhold a response, not because they're afraid to speak, but because they don't need to. Their restraint is not submission, it's sovereignty. Seneca warned against being swept away by external impressions and emotional winds. He reminded us that mastering one's impulses is the real battlefield. So when someone offends you, questions you, or attempts to provoke you, what would a Stoic do? He wouldn't debate, complain, or defend. He would observe, and if necessary, act, but never react. There is a difference. A reaction is fueled by ego. A response is chosen through principle. And that brings us to the central message of this part. Commanding respect is not about making others feel your presence. It's about making your presence undeniable without saying a word. It's about earning reverence not through performance, but through presence. People can sense when someone is grounded, when someone is not easily shaken. They instinctively defer to the person who needs nothing from them, not attention, not validation, not applause. This is the highest form of Stoic strength. The quiet mind that needs nothing but its own alignment. So next time you're tempted to speak just to fill the silence, to respond just to prove a point, or to assert your worth through words, pause. Ask yourself, would Marcus speak now? Or would he simply observe? Would Epictetus engage in this argument? Or would he quietly return to his own practice? Would Seneca chase validation? Or would he turn inward and strengthen his inner citadel? Because in the end, you do not command respect by chasing it. You command it by becoming someone who no longer needs it. You become the one who carries so much inner order that the world around you falls into alignment without ever being told to. Power does not always announce itself. In fact, the most powerful people rarely speak much at all. They let their presence do the work. That presence, that unshakable calm others feel when you walk into a room, that doesn't come from status, charisma, or any external flair. It is built slowly and intentionally through quiet, disciplined habits. This is the Stoic way. Stoics didn't rely on speeches or gestures to command respect. They relied on mastery of themselves. And in today's world, that kind of strength is rare. That kind of silence is magnetic. The first practice is morning reflection. It's deceptively simple, but it's the foundation of the Stoic life. Marcus Aurelius began his days asking, "What will test me today?" He didn't wait for chaos to catch him off guard. He anticipated it. He rehearsed it. By expecting discomfort, he transformed surprise into preparation. This daily ritual builds a subtle but powerful armor around your mindset. Before the world even has a chance to provoke you, you've already met it in thought. Alongside this reflection comes breathwork. A few minutes of still, conscious breathing trains your nervous system to remain calm under pressure. When your breath is steady, your mind becomes difficult to disturb. In moments when others are panicking, you exhale. When they escalate, you remain grounded. That's how gravity is built, not through what you say, but through how little external noise changes your internal climate. Then comes the deeper habit, discipline. Discipline is the language the world listens to without needing translation. You wake early, not because anyone asked you to, but because you govern yourself. You move your body, not for aesthetics, but for clarity. You eat with restraint, speak with care, and act with deliberateness. These habits, repeated in silence, begin to speak for you. People may not see your routines, but they will feel the result of them in your demeanor. The less you need to prove, the more people begin to trust you. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is endurable, then endure it." Stop complaining. This is not a call for stoic suffering. It's a reminder that complaining adds weight to what we already carry. When you stop explaining your hardship, and instead absorb it as part of your path, you gain an invisible strength. This strength becomes your signature. You don't have to advertise your pain. Your stillness in the storm tells everyone who you are. The inner citadel is what Epictetus called that part of us that remains untouched by the outside world. It's a metaphor for your mental fortress. You build it brick by brick. Each breath you hold instead of arguing. Each reaction you postpone instead of indulging. Over time, your identity stops being reactive. You're no longer a product of circumstances. You are a presence that remains the same in noise or silence. In praise or rejection, the Stoic doesn't seek control over others. The Stoic seeks dominion over themselves. This inner power is sharpened through everyday moments. Imagine a tense argument. Someone insults you. The default urge is to respond, to defend, to match volume with volume. But instead, you pause, not because you're scared, but because you've trained for this. That pause isn't emptiness, it's force held in reserve. It's you refusing to give someone else the keys to your emotional state. That pause builds trust, not just with others, but within yourself. Journaling becomes your quiet chamber, not for performance, not for followers, but for truth. You write about what triggered you, what you learned, what you could have done better. You don't need a stage, you need a page. The page listens. The page trains you to respond instead of react. Over time, your journal becomes a mirror. And that reflection, honest, unfiltered, is what fuels your evolution. Then there are detachment rituals. These are not dramatic exits. These are silent acknowledgments that some things do not deserve your energy. Maybe it's a conversation you walk away from. Maybe it's a notification you don't check. Maybe it's a person you outgrow. Detachment is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's knowing that the more still you remain, the more accurate your decisions become. Every moment you don't chase, every time you remain seated when your ego screams to stand and shout, you gain depth. You become someone others watch, even if they don't understand why. Finally, there's the Stoic pause in the middle of conflict. It's not about swallowing emotion. It's about redirecting it. Someone criticizes you, you breathe, not to suppress the sting, but to listen for the truth underneath it. Someone ignores you, you don't chase, not because you don't care, but because you know your value is not determined by their attention. These micro decisions, made silently, shape your macro impact. You don't walk into a room demanding respect, you carry it with you. In time, people notice, not because you said something profound, but because you didn't need to. Because when everyone else is speaking, you're still. When they argue, you observe. When they waver, you remain. The world begins to lean toward you, not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. That's what Stoic habits do. They make you unforgettable without making you loud. And so we move forward, not to get louder, but to get clearer, not to win arguments, but to win ourselves back from impulse and reaction. This is the practice of commanding respect without saying a word. And now that the inner gravity is established, the next challenge is how to maintain that presence when the world tests it. In the next section, we explore how your silence begins to shift your environment, without ever needing to raise your voice. In a world flooded with noise, the loudest person in the room often appears powerful. But true power, Stoicism teaches, is rarely loud. It's quiet, it's still, it's intentional. There is a mysterious gravity to someone who doesn't rush to speak, doesn't fight to be seen, and yet is unmistakably present. This is the aura of stillness. It is not something you perform, it is something you become. The paradox is striking. The less you say, the more people tend to listen. When you withhold commentary, when you hold eye contact without the need to fill silence, your presence amplifies. This is not about manipulation. It's about projection, projecting mastery, not desperation. When you can sit still while others scramble for attention, it signals that you are grounded in something deeper than approval. Situational Stoicism is where this becomes real. Take the boardroom, for example. The meeting begins. Everyone talks, cross-talks, pitches opinions. You sit, observe, and wait. When you do speak, your words land harder. Why? Because they are rare, because they are measured, because they don't come from impulse but from insight. That contrast creates credibility. You don't win the room by dominating it. You win it by mastering yourself in it. Or consider conflict. The Stoic in confrontation doesn't flare up. They don't retaliate immediately. They listen. They study. They respond minimally, if at all. When someone insults you and you don't flinch, you shatter their illusion of control. When someone challenges you and you don't defend, you rise above their battlefield. Stoicism turns stillness into strategy. It allows others to show their character while you protect yours. In social power plays, silence is your armor. Gossip swirls, you don't contribute. Lies are told about you, you don't chase to correct. You know that attention is currency, and not everyone deserves to spend it. In a world that believes silence means guilt or weakness, the Stoic redefines it as strength. Stillness becomes your boundary. You are not pulled into chaos. You contain calm. The eyes say what words cannot. Eye contact, held with steadiness, communicates presence more clearly than 1,000 explanations. You don't need to interrupt. You don't need to overtalk. The stillness in your gaze, your posture, your breath, that is what people remember. You walk into a room and speak only when necessary, but your silence follows you even after you leave. This is how Stoics leave echoes where others leave noise. We have historical models for this. Marcus Aurelius among his soldiers was calm, reflective. He didn't shout commands. He embodied order. His very existence in camp, his composure in chaos, became a stabilizing force. Or Seneca in Roman politics. Amid cutthroat debates, he was not the loudest, but he was deliberate. His restraint made his voice weightier. His calm made him invincible. These examples show that silence doesn't weaken you in public spaces, it elevates you. Epictetus once said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." In public, we often try to control perception. We overspeak to be liked. We overreact to be noticed. We overjustify to be understood. But all of these are attempts to hold what cannot be held, the opinions of others. When you let go of this need, your energy returns home. You become centered. And from that center, presence is born. Silence then becomes more than a strategy. It becomes a shield. It protects your time, your thoughts, your peace. It allows you to watch without being pulled, to listen without being provoked, to exist without seeking approval. When you are silent on purpose, not by fear, you become untouchable. Your power lies not in what you say, but in what you can afford not to say. As we shift to the next part, we explore how this silence, so often misunderstood, actually becomes your protection in volatile environments. It's not just that you avoid conflict, it's that you become immune to it. Because when the noise rises, and you remain still, everyone sees who the real master is. The one who commands respect without raising his voice. The one who moves through the world like a fortress. Let us now uncover how stillness is not the absence of response, but the presence of deep power. How it can act as a shield that deflects drama, and as a beacon that attracts only what aligns with your truth. True boundaries are often drawn in silence, not confrontation. In a world that equates volume with authority, the Stoic understands that real respect comes not from explaining your worth but from living it with discipline. When someone disrespects you, manipulates your emotions, or betrays your trust, your absence speaks more loudly than your argument ever could. The decision not to respond, not because you're afraid, but because you're free, signals power in its purest form. There is strength in restraint. When provoked, the modern impulse is to explain, to argue, to prove. But every time you over-explain a boundary, you weaken it. You invite negotiation, dilution, or worse, disregard. The Stoic knows. Do not chase explanations. Hold the line. Let the line explain itself. As Marcus Aurelius advised, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Silence is not withdrawal from the world. It's a stance within it. Consider the emotional toll of constantly explaining why you're stepping back, why you said no, why you're no longer tolerating disrespect. That toll is the tax of insecurity. But Stoicism trains you to be unshaken by external noise. Your boundaries do not need to be justified. They need to be lived. When you stop reacting to manipulation and instead enforce emotional distance with calm detachment, people notice. Some may call you cold. Others will finally start listening. Real-world examples abound. A friend who only calls when they need something. You stop picking up. Not out of spite, but clarity. A colleague who belittles you in meetings. You stop seeking their approval. Deliver excellent work, and let silence become your professionalism. A partner who violates your trust. You withdraw with dignity, not with drama. These are not passive acts. They are fierce, measured, self-respecting acts. Detachment, in this frame, is not the absence of care. It is the presence of standards. You are not cold because you don't explain. You're focused because you no longer waste energy on people who cannot receive your clarity. Emotional hygiene means protecting your peace the same way you protect your health. The less you respond, the more they respect, if not you. Then your silence, because silence, in Stoicism, is never empty. It is a fortress. When you stop demanding respect and start embodying it, something shifts. You stop announcing boundaries and begin radiating them. You're not trying to prove you're strong. You're simply no longer available to be weakened. The boundary is in the way you no longer reply to manipulation. In the way you leave rooms without slamming doors. In the way you do not return to what has already shown you its level of regard. This restraint, this composure, This calm refusal to engage in emotional noise becomes your unspoken power. You lose nothing by holding back words. You gain gravity. You become a mystery not to be solved but a presence to be respected. The world adjusts. People who once tested your edges begin to tread more carefully. Those who never valued you may never return. But more importantly, your energy is no longer scattered. You've honored yourself without explanation. And in doing so, you've earned something far deeper than approval. You've earned reverence, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. Next comes the natural reward of this strength, not applause, but quiet recognition, not validation, but solid ground. You held your line, and the world noticed. Now you walk forward with fewer words and greater weight. You reach a point in the Stoic path where silence no longer needs to defend itself. It speaks without sound. It commands without demand. At this final stage, you don't seek reverence, it finds you. Respect, in the Stoic worldview, is not something to chase with titles, loud speeches, or dramatic gestures. It's something others offer, quietly, in response to a presence built on integrity, consistency, and calm. You become respected not because of what you say, but because of how you carry yourself when you say nothing at all. This is the paradox of true influence. The less you chase it, the more you embody it. When you walk into a room with a grounded mind, with your emotions in check, your values intact, and your words rare but deliberate, you alter the energy of the space. People lean in to hear you not because you talk loudly, but because you speak rarely. They notice you not because you flash, but because you endure. You stop broadcasting yourself and instead radiate presence. True Stoics don't beg for acknowledgement. They don't explain their standards. They live them. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus said, that embodiment is what makes you untouchable. People sense it in your posture, your pause, your ability to absorb offense without retaliation. In silence, you mirror strength. In restraint, you reflect power. You do not need to convince anyone of who you are. Your stillness becomes the evidence. You don't just set boundaries, you become a boundary. You don't just manage reactions, you become unreactive. And this calm becomes your shield. The less you argue, the more people listen. The less you perform, the more they respect. The less you seek approval, the more unshakable you become. So this is the reward. Silent reverence, a kind of earned authority that cannot be faked, bought, or demanded. It comes from the discipline of self-governance, the consistency of daily habits, and the refusal to dilute your energy by over-explaining your soul. Your final mantra is simple. Let your silence disturb their chaos. Let your calm command their attention. Be the one who never raises his voice, yet is never overlooked. Be the presence people feel before you speak, and remember long after you leave. Command respect, without saying a word. That is the Stoic way.